Hello everybody, so I figured I would do a different video today. Um, a while back, a family member of mine told me that the videos were kind of depressing, and that wasn't exactly my goal. The only reason why I was doing these videos is because I got so much feedback from the Soft White Underbelly video telling me that I should do these videos to help people. So, if you want to support me or the channel, the information's in the description. Do not feel obligated. So I thought I would do something different and tell you how I went from having aspirations of being a deacon for the Roman Catholic Church to photographing nude women. So I never really went to church with my immediate family growing up. The only time I would go to church is when I went to El Centro, which is where my mother's family lived. So a quick background, for the most part, I am half Welsh, half Mexican. My mom's Mexican, my father's of Welsh descent. So anytime we would go to El Centro, we would pretty much always go to church. Usually when we went there, it'd be for a few days or for like a week. So I grew up going to church there and I liked it. It was pretty cool. Now, I grew up in Fontana from birth until age early 15. Around that time, my dad had an idea that he wanted a career change from being a chemical engineer to being a correctional officer. So we ultimately moved to El Centro, and I just started going to church pretty much every Sunday. And then I became an altar boy. I got my first communion. But what was interesting is whenever I'd be in the sanctuary of the Catholic Church, which most people would never experience unless you're, part of the church, the altar boy, altar girls, the priest, the deacon, and whatever other Catholic people that read the word during the service, whatever, those sort of people that would usually be in the sanctuary. But when I was in the sanctuary, I always felt like this sense of like peace and like there was something really heavy spiritually there. And it felt kind of like I had been there before, even though I had never been back there. Like it all seemed very familiar to me. And the priest was this younger guy. I would say maybe he was my age now, about 41, 42. He wasn't the typical priest. He listened far more than he talked. He wasn't rude like a lot of them are. He was a really cool dude. And I ended up finding out a little later in life that he was gay and that he ultimately died of AIDS. A friend told me that he would basically be partying in San Francisco. And I remember when he was telling me that when I was 15, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, no way. So beneath the priest is a deacon, and the deacon was a little bit younger than the priest. I think he was in his mid-30s at the time. And he basically taught me one-on-one. I was supposed to get taught like in a class, but the nun had some issues with the priest and said, no, the class is over, he's going to have to wait. And he was very nice to saying, no, I want you to teach him. And she said no. She wasn't a very nice woman, like a lot of nuns aren't, right? They're not very nice people very often. So he decided that he would have the deacon teach me one-on-one. And that's where I started getting my class. I think I only talked to him like once or twice for a couple hours each time. And not to get off the subject, but he was gay too. And he also died of AIDS. So something interesting to think about. So I felt, I definitely felt like a heavy spiritualness, I guess. I just felt like, God was with me and all that stuff. Now I'm going to backtrack a bit. When I was, I want to say like 7 years old, I had a nervous breakdown. My parents were going through a divorce, and both of my older brothers, they had a different father, and something happened at the house with my dad, and they decided they want to go live with their dad. So they split, and I cared about them very much. And my mother was pregnant, or had just given birth to my sister. So I felt like everybody was leaving me, even though it was just my brothers taking off. Sorry for the dogs barking, if you can hear that. And with my sister coming along, I felt that I was just like disappearing, that nobody would see me. So I had a nervous breakdown. And I didn't know what was happening to me, but basically it was anxiety and depression. Now that I'm older, looking back, I kind of know what it was. So I remember my mother just giving me like this Virgin Mary medallion that she found at Goodwill, and told me to wear it and to pray, and that basically everything would be okay. And then whenever we would go to El Centro, my grandmother would tell me the same thing. Just pray and you'll be okay. And my mom ultimately put me in therapy, and I want to say I felt like maybe 3 months, I was back to normal and I was okay. The anxiety and depression left. But I always associated that with God was taking care of me, and he got rid of the anxiety and depression. So back to being 15 years old, I had just turned 16, and my dad decided that he did not want to be a correctional officer, that he wanted to get out of El Centro, and the correctional thing was not working. He said the other correctional officers and the management were harder to deal with than the prisoners. They were just horrible people on power trips. And he just didn't want to do it anymore. And he asked me where I wanted to live. We all knew that we weren't going back to Fontana. It was just, there was a pretty heavy gang presence there, and it just wasn't safe. A lot of drugs. So he asked me where I wanted to live, and I told him, I want to live in Claremont. And he took my advice, and we ended up in Claremont. Now, I didn't go to church anymore when we arrived in Claremont. So, but I still felt I had a spiritual connection. I prayed. I had religious artifacts around my room, like crosses and pictures of saints and that sort of thing. And another thing I'll bring up is I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. Didn't have a whole lot of friends in elementary school or middle school or high school. I just didn't fit in. I wasn't a jock. I wasn't a soc or any of those people. I just basically I hung out with outcasts. And when I say outcasts, I don't mean they were all drug addicts. Some of them used drugs. Some of them got pregnant at a young age. But these were all people that just didn't fit in. So I had never had a girlfriend or anything like that. Never had any amazing, very close friends. I take that back. I had one in junior high, and we still talk a little here and there. She's pretty cool. So let's see. So we moved to Claremont in October of 1996, October 31st of 1996. Within 2 months, within 2 months, I kind of started hanging out with this clique of some pretty cool people. And there was this chick who kind of, you know, what's your name? Who are you? She's part of the clique. And I told her, and, you know, she just kind of came off a bit aggressive. Not bad aggressive, but just a little aggressive. Well, me and this clique would go places. I didn't have a car, I didn't drive at the time, but that chick had a car, and we would go to San Dimas Canyon, the forest. We would go to Griswold's old schoolhouse, and just random places. And I remember one time being at Griswold's old schoolhouse, which is the original high school in Claremont, California. I think it was built like in the 20s or something. I remember I was there with this clique, and that girl, whose name's Leslie, reached out. I was walking in back front. She reached out her back hands like this, like grabbed my hand. So I grabbed her hands and she wrapped them around her. That was the first experience of any kind of intimacy with a girl that I ever had. And one day, I think it was like 7 o'clock at night. This is probably like December 16th, around there, of 96. Somebody knocks on our door, and my mom says it's for you. And so I go over there, and I'm in my sleep clothes, and then I see her. I'm all embarrassed. And she just tells me to put on your clothes. Come on, let's go. And I was like, okay. And so I changed my clothes, put on my leather jacket, and she took me to Sapphire in Rancho Cucamonga. It's this street, Sapphire and Thoroughbred, where there's just a bunch of blocks. They just go all out for Christmas and the Christmas lights and everything. And it was very cold, to the point where you breathe and you can see the steam coming out of your mouth, or fog, whatever. And that was basically the beginning of my relationship with her. So I had my first girlfriend. And that's the reason why I thought that if I ever would do something with the Catholic Church, that I'd be a deacon, because I wanted to leave it open just in case I found somebody before I finished school. You know, I could get married if that happened, but I just didn't see that happening. But it did. I got my first girlfriend. So, to make a long story short, we felt pretty hard. That was the first intimate experience I ever had. And she just kind of slowly started drifting apart, drifting away from me. She wouldn't return my calls. We wouldn't see each other that much. And it turns out her ex-boyfriend wasn't her ex-boyfriend, and she was with him the whole time we were together, which kind of sucks. And that kind of set me up for the way I would see other relationships for the rest of my life. So at this point, I pretty much know that I'm not going to go to seminary school. And so let's get on to the photography. I've always loved photography. But you know, cameras are expensive, film's expensive. When you're growing up, yeah, your parents might buy you like a roll of film here and there, but I mean, it's expensive. One second. So the first camera that I ever received, I received when I was, I want to say 9 or 10, and it took 110 film. Now, for most of you that don't know much about photography, this was your common 110 camera. And it has a little thing right here which you put a flash, and the flash would either turn, there'd be like 4 flashes for each flash cube, or there'd be one that kind of stood up like this, and this flash would go off and then it would die, this flash would go off, and you'd have X amount of flashes per flash cube or flash bar. So the camera that I received, it was kind of like a spy camera. So this is a 110 cartridge. The camera was this little piece of plastic that just went over here. And there's a little thing that you lift up and you take pictures and kind of... And it was a shitty camera. It didn't work that well, but it was my first camera. I couldn't even tell you what I took photos of. So let's go forward into the future a little bit. I get my first job that I really kind of like. I caught shoplifters at a Kmart in Ontario. And I had this really cool boss who I still kind of talk to this day. And he was a wilderness photographer. And he traveled all over the United States in his Toyota 4x4, 1987, 4-cylinder truck that lasts forever. And he just went to all these places and, you know, he photographed all the places that everybody who's a landscape photographer wants to photograph, like the Grand Tetons, the Grand Canyon, the Mono Lake, Monument Valley, all that stuff. So I kept telling him that I really wanted to get into photography, and he would try to explain to me aperture and shutter speed, and I'd get him backwards, and I couldn't understand exactly what he was talking about. So I asked him if there was any cameras that he had for sale. And he told me that he had 2 Pentax K1000s, which I didn't know what they were at the time. But for those of you who don't know, it's the #1 student camera of all time. You have to tell it what to do. There's no autofocus, there's no automatic features. You have to tell it what to do, otherwise your picture's gonna come out like shit. So he told me he had 2, but he was attached to them. He was a Cancer, so he was attached to everything, didn't want to give anything away. But one day he told me, I'll tell you what, if you can catch another shoplifter today, I'll sell you the camera for $250. This is, I want to say 2000 or 2001. And there's 15 minutes left of the store being open. It's going to be very difficult. But I pulled it off. I caught somebody. I think it was a kid stealing inner tubes for a bicycle tire. So I bring this guy in, and I can see the look on my boss's face. He's happy, but he's like, damn it, I don't want to sell this camera. But he kept his word, and he brought it the next day. And he explained to me how the light meter works. You had to take a picture. The light, there's like a little needle in the middle when you're looking through the viewfinder, and you want that to be level. And the first roll of film I bought was black and white, and I bought it from Claremont Camera, I think, which is now defunct. I went to, I think, Laguna Beach with a very good friend of mine. And I had a tripod, and I took a few pictures of him, and I explained to him what to do. And of course, he got it really quick and took some pictures of me. And it was cool. I had my first film camera, and I was excited. And then it kind of just died a little bit. I only took pictures with it here and there, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't have the confidence level to be doing anything serious. So we'll go forward a little more. The year is 2004. I have moved up in that job. I'm now a manager, making some pretty good money for a 24-year-old. And I got my bonus. So I knew I wanted to get a serious digital camera. So I bought one, and I just started buying books like crazy. Any book on photography I could find, I would read. And then Borders at the time had this thing where you sign up with your email, and they would send you coupons the more you bought. So often I would get a buy one book, get one free, buy one book, get one half off. And so I read about 10 books, and I figured that my confidence level was improving. I learned a lot. And then I met a friend on Craigslist. I met him because he was selling this camera that I always wanted, which was a Fuji S2. So I met this guy and he gave me little tips here and there. You can do this, you can do that. And I brought my camera with me everywhere. And I started shooting weddings, doing pretty well for myself. And then I heard of a website called Model Mayhem, which is a place where models meet makeup artists meet photographers. You get the idea. So I found this model, and this is 2006 or 2007. Yeah. So I find this model and decide that I want to photograph her. We agree on an amount. She comes to my apartment, and I had some backdrops kind of hanging from the ceiling the best I could. I didn't have any strobes at the time, so I just used on-camera flash and kind of bounced them off the ceiling, and the pictures came out great. So that was my first experience. I had a blast. The pictures came out great. And from there on, I think I photographed a couple other chicks on Model Mayhem. And then I got a website going. And there's a lot of word of mouth. So people, my friends would ask me if I'd photograph their wife for them. So I did that a few times. And then one time I visited my niece, and her friend was there, and my niece explained that I was a photographer, and this chick her friend was somebody who kind of came off like she likes a lot of attention, and so she asked me if I'd photograph her sometime, but she had all these ideas. I was like, yeah, sure. So I photographed her, like, I want to say, gosh, like maybe 8 times. The pictures came out great. Had a lot of fun. And the thing about photographing nude women, for me, is that, first off, know that I was never turned on. I never got sexually excited or anything like that. What I liked was that a woman could be completely vulnerable, completely naked, and I could photograph her and show her how I see her, and show her a beauty that either she didn't know she had, or show her this beauty of her that she had never seen. There's a lot of trust that's involved, and I like having that trust and doing the right thing and not trying to take advantage of that in any way. And then trying to get them super happy that they got naked in front of me and I created this art with them. So that's pretty much the main, reason why I like photographing nude women so much, is because of the trust that's involved and the creation of something. Now, I cannot tell you the last nude photo shoot I had. I think it was about 4 years ago. I kind of developed a better friendship with my friend's wife, who I used to photograph quite often. So they split up, but they still talked, and I wanted to photograph her. So he said, hey, this is Peter's phone number. He wants to photograph you. And she was like, yeah, sure. So we worked together quite a few more times. We created some pretty cool stuff. And that was the last nude photo shoot I had. After I got my first serious digital camera, I knew kind of in my heart that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to photograph nude women. Now, unfortunately, there's really no money to be made photographing nude women, because most guys will do it for free. The ones that aren't very good photographers, we call them GWCs, guys with cameras. They just want to photograph, vagina. And that's another thing. All the nudes that I did, they're tastefully done. They're fine art. They're not some hustler shoot, with some chick that has her legs spread. I don't do photography like that, and I never have, and I don't want to. I think that's ridiculous. I want to create something beautiful. I think it's cool when you can get a woman completely naked, but they're in this position where you can't see anything. But you have to make that pose look interesting at the same time. So yeah, I like to photograph nude women. And thank God that early on in the beginning, I was making really good money photographing weddings. I was getting sometimes 3 weddings in a weekend. I'd have to photograph a wedding with a friend, and then I'd have to leave and have another person back that person up, and then go to the second wedding with another backup. I think one Saturday I photographed 3 weddings. And one of the reasons why I kind of slowed it down is because I was getting just overwhelmed and tired. It takes a lot out of you. This is one of the most important days of this person's whole life. And you got to photograph it correctly and make sure you don't make any mistakes. And I never had any issues with anybody, so I was pretty blessed. But still, it's a little nerve-wracking. You still have to go home and edit the photos. So there's a lot to handle there. So between photographing weddings and selling used photographic equipment on eBay, I did pretty well. So I have always loved Polaroid. If you ask me, that was still the biggest moment in photography rather than when it went digital. Because with Polaroid, you got an instant photo and it was in your hand. It was tangible. It wasn't, you just took this picture and it's, you can view it. Of course, you can upload it to your computer and print it, but instantly you got this picture with Polaroid, and that was awesome. So there's a place called Sal's Camera in Laverne, which is also defunct. And one day I just walked in and saw his stuff, and we kind of talked, and I told him that I did eBay for a living and I was a wedding photographer, and came back a second time. And hey, didn't you say you did eBay? There's some things I would like to sell here, maybe we could work out some kind of a deal. So I worked for him part-time and did pretty well for myself, besides doing my own eBay, besides doing the photography for myself. So one day this guy comes in, and he had this 1950s Polaroid camera, which basically you have to change the aperture yourself and change the shutter speed, and you have to have a light meter so you know how to shoot it. But they stopped making film for this thing, I want to say at the time, maybe almost 2 decades prior, so there's no film for it. But he had modified this Polaroid to take pack film that was still available. And I think I bought it for like $40. And it also had a PC sync, which means you could attach like a cable to it, so it would set off the studio strobes, so all the lighting. So this camera was pretty badass. So that kind of took me on my Polaroid adventure, where I just started photographing models with Polaroid and taking some pretty incredible photographs. And I started selling some of them on eBay. My photos are all over the world. Europe, different places in Europe, Australia, United States. And there was like 3 or 4 collectors that just bought from me daily. I would post 15 new photos at anywhere from $12 to $30, and they would just buy them all in one shot. So I was making pretty good money at that too. But then eBay would change its rules. You can sell nude photos, but you can't show the nudity. So then I'd have to put like these bars around, their breasts and their lower area. And then 6 months later, no, we don't want you to do that anymore. We want you to show the nudity, but it needs to be listed in the art section of eBay. Okay, you do that. And then they would take down all your photos and say, we're not allowing that anymore. You need to post them back. And it was just back and forth. And then you'd call eBay and say, look, I'm doing exactly what you're saying, and you're taking down my photos. And this person would say something, and another eBay worker would say something else. And it was a nightmare, but it sucked because I was making pretty good money doing that. Now you can still list on eBay, but you put it in the adult section, and very few people even know about the adult section. And yeah, there's just really no money to be made selling nude photographs on eBay anymore. So I guess I could say that some of things like that, with the Polaroids, maybe that took away a little of the passion of photography, besides my accident. It's been a lot of fun. I have a pretty big collection of film cameras and digital cameras that I like very much. And with smartphones, my God, the cameras are getting better and better. I sometimes wonder if wedding photography will even be around in 10 years. And sometimes I think I should get rid of my film cameras, because there was a lot of film that I used to use that they don't even make anymore. And then 6 months later, they would say, oh, we're not making plus X anymore. It's like, oh my God, that sucks. But there was still plenty of film out there. But then they stopped making Reala. And it's like, my God, what's happening? But I'm not in the mood to sell them yet. There's still plenty of film available. And that's where I'm at. Yeah, I still love photographing nude women. I don't think that'll ever go away. I think it's slowed down a little bit too, because I really don't know anybody here in the city. So, I don't have my friends and friends of other friends to recommend me and, do that kind of work anymore. And with my ideas of being a deacon early on in life, I'm still a Christian man. But, I have some variances on that. Like I said, I believe in reincarnation. And I have a little more sense than the normal Christian. I'm not a holier-than-thou Christian. I don't tell people how they need to live their lives. Unless it's a fellow Christian, a friend who's telling me maybe he wants to cheat on his wife. Then I'd say, well, let's think about this first. The Bible's against that. You're going to hurt your wife. You do whatever you want. It's your life. And I'm going to be your friend no matter what. But really think about this. So, but a random person, it's not my business to be telling anybody what to do. And most Christians don't understand just how much stuff has been taken out of the Bible or added to the Bible. With when Constantine was in power. What about the Dead Sea Scrolls? What about the changes and the word between, if you're reading the New International Version to the New Living Translation to the King James Version to the New King James Version? Things get lost in translation with language. If it's being translated from Aramaic to English, from Greek to English, from Greek to Aramaic, whatever. So people have to know that there's some room for error there. And like I've said a million times before, being a Christian in a nutshell, love, 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 forgive, forgive, forgive. That's basically what it is in a nutshell. And a lot of people have told me in the past, well, should you really be photographing nude women? You're a Christian. It's like, yeah, so? I'm not lusting after the nude women. Tell me where in the Bible it says that I can't photograph a nude woman. It says you shouldn't lust, and I'm not lusting after them. And when my wife and I first got together, I explained to her, this is what I do. I don't want to be told what to do. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to lie to you, but this is a hobby of mine and a passion of mine. And she understood, so there's no issues. So yeah, I guess basically that's where we're at. I know it's a big life change to consider being a level below a priest to, becoming a photographer and who mainly wanted to do nudes. Well, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or you want to talk about cameras or photography or whatever, message me in the comments. Thank you very much for listening.